So we're going to start out with this scenario. David works for a university, and recently he's been approached by a group of students who would like him to leak out the examination papers on the next test in exchange for some money. Now, only David's boss, Daniel, has access to the questions that will be on the exam. So David is tempted by the offer, and he accepts. So how do we think David is actually going to go about proceeding and getting these answers for the exam? Do you think that David will be able to hijack Daniel's account to leak this information? Also, what primary study will David do before he actually starts doing the hacking himself? And then can Daniel be held responsible in case David succeeds with his evil design? So we're going to start out by looking at password cracking. Now, in the CEH hacking cycle, we looked at enumeration in our last module. In this module, we're going to look at cracking the passwords. So what kinds of passwords are out there? Well, first we need to understand that. There can be simple passwords, like passwords that have only letters. You can have passwords with only numbers, passwords that contain only special characters, and then you start getting into the mix of the passwords. You have passwords that have letters and numbers, maybe some letters and some special characters. You also have passwords that have only special characters and numbers, and finally you can have any combination thereof. Now, obviously, the more variation you have in your password, the stronger it helps to make the password. But sometimes that by itself is not enough to stop people from trying to hack a password. So there are basically 4 different kinds of attacks that can be placed upon a password. You have passive online attacks, active online attacks, offline attacks, and then of course you have non-electronic attacks. And while they may not seem to be as complex or sophisticated, sometimes they can even be more effective. So one of the first passive online types of attacks is wire sniffing. Now, wire sniffing is a relatively simple technology. It's a matter of simply placing a device or a piece of software that listens what's going over the line. In other words, sniffing the line. It accesses the raw data, and that raw data is usually saved off until a separate file. Now, you might actually take that raw data and analyze it, or even try to brute force the credentials that are contained within it, or you might just take that data and replay it later on. Now, some of the considerations that you have to think about are, first off, this is not necessarily an easy way to attack a password. In other words, you're going to have some kind of physical access. Now, a lot of times, people don't consider that physical access can be just as important as electronic access. After all, who's walking into the building? The man walking in with the brown shorts, is he actually from one of the couriers carrying messages back and forth, or is he a hacker with bad intentions?